What's up, Hail Stalkers? Thanks for joining us on this Monday afternoon. I'm meteorologist Taylor Cox, and we are tracking everything from tornadoes over the weekend to ice and snow, high winds, and extremely cold temperatures, as I'm sure a lot of you have felt over the last 48 hours. Now, we will go over basically region by region how much snow we got over the last 48 or even 72 hours. We're going to talk about the tornadoes that we saw yesterday, and we're also going to talk about that severe weather that we saw down in places like Alabama and Georgia and Florida. So let's go ahead and get into it. Thanks for joining me on this Monday afternoon. Go ahead and put your comments and your questions in the comments section. I can see them on my side of the screen, but obviously we are not in the studio this morning, and all of that thanks to the snow that is sitting across Oklahoma right now. It has kept us all inside. The roads are still absolutely covered with snow. Before we talk about snow, I want to talk about the tornadoes in Alabama yesterday. So we saw a squall line across Alabama, Georgia, and portions of Florida yesterday. That did produce at least 2 to 3 confirmed tornadoes. We may have a few more than that. However, that's at least what we know of right now. We know that we're going to get more information later on today, so we'll keep you updated on that. Still behind that warm front, that squall line, we have over almost 800,000 people without power thanks to a historic ice and snowstorm that hit over 15 states this weekend. And a lot of people already know that. You know there's snow outside. You know there's ice outside. You've seen social media. You may be living through that ice and snow yourself. But when will it warm up? When will we finally get this snow out of our way and be able to return to work and be able to return to doing our normal activities? Well, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the potential next blast of cold air coming in and how long that's going to stick around. So let's go ahead. Let's take a look at our 48-hour storm reports. Well, oftentimes whenever you see this snow and ice map, you may not see tornadoes and high wind, but you know, the weather has a weird thing of keeping us on our toes. So what we saw yesterday, after all of this snow moved out of places like Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Texas, we saw this warm air moving in from the Gulf up into places like Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. That's where we started to see that severe weather come into play. And you can see that right there. We saw some high wind in Montgomery yesterday. We also saw several tornado reports in the southern side of Georgia, just along that Georgia, Alabama, Florida state lines. You can see all of those severe thunderstorm and tornado warnings that we had yesterday. And again, this is right around 2 o'clock Central Time yesterday. So that was in addition to the snow and ice. Very, very impactful system here. What are we looking at right now? Well, it's actually really dry right now. And actually right now, we're going to start into a stretch of dry days ahead of us. So we had all of that moisture this weekend. We're going into a dry period now. You can see across the Northeast, we still have a little bit of snow lingering. For the most part, we are very dry. And actually, do you see on the map, I wish I was able to point this out to you, but do you see those, what looks like cloudy areas, kind of that milky white across places like Wichita, Oklahoma City, especially on the western side of Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas? That's actually snow that's sitting on the ground. You can see some of that snow and some of the clouds mixing in there as well. You can see that from our satellite view here. Okay, Oklahoma City sitting at 17 right now. No snow is melting. Not whenever it's 17. Now, Dallas, you're going to see a little bit of melting today, 26 degrees, 7 degrees in Kansas City. It's still very cold up there, and all of that thanks to this low pressure system that is sitting across the Midwest right now, and it's keeping that cold air in place, and it's going to be doing that for the next several days from today all the way through tomorrow. Finally, we're going to see this high pressure system try to move some heat in at some point, but it's going to take a little bit. I think it's going to take a little bit to move that in. All righty, moving on here, we've got high pressure system, and it's going to also keep us very dry across the U.S. It's going to keep us very dry. Let's take a look at your significant severe weather. We've got our severe weather. No, if there's no storms, there's no severe weather, right? It's dry, no rain, no snow, no severe weather. So that's what we're going to see over the next few days. But before we get into the rest of the forecast here, I want to bring in meteorologist Michaela Smith. Michaela, you have been tracking this cold weather all weekend long. You have been watching it last week as well, as it was approaching Oklahoma and Texas to be hit first. Now, all across 14, 15 different states, we have snow and ice on the ground. Can you tell us what happened and when will we see all of this finally melt?
Yeah, it's definitely going to take several days for it to melt. This was a really big, impactful event that we were seeing. We actually saw from the National Weather Service or the Storm Prediction Center that this was the most what they call mesoscale discussions for winter specific things that they've ever issued in their history. The previous record was 20, and they issued over 40 in a span of 48 hours. So again, it was a very just busy stretch of days starting on Friday. And then that lasted all the way through the weekend, and then still seeing a little bit of snow to the northeast this morning. So starting off, I want to show you some of the snow totals across the area. I can see Oklahoma City had about 8.5 inches. Now there were places in Oklahoma that had even more snow, but this is just coming from some of the, again, bigger cities. Dallas, you had 2.4 inches of snow and sleet combined. You also had ice, and we'll talk about the ice here in a minute. St. Louis was just shy of 10 inches, so quite a bit of snowfall. Central Park in New York City had a little over 11 inches, and then the biggest total from this store event came from Pennsylvania. New Bethlehem saw 23.3 inches of snow. So a lot of snow across the U.S. And I want to remind you guys what we forecasted here at HailTrace. You just saw, again, those totals were over 8 in Oklahoma City. Well, you were right on the cusp of that 8+ possible. We talked about St. Louis, up to 6 likely. They had more than that, closer to 10. But again, up to 6 was very likely for a lot of these areas. Pennsylvania across where we had those 23.3, that 8+ possible. Yeah, they smashed that. So we told you guys last week we were going a little bit more conservative some of these totals just because snowstorms don't always pan out exactly how we want them to. And even then, again, a lot of this forecast was kind of exactly what we expected it to be here at HailTrace. Now, I also want to show you some of these ice totals. So Dallas, you had a little bit of ice to start off, a little bit of freezing rain, nothing compared to some of these other areas that we're going to be talking about. Really a big one that we saw was Oxford, Mississippi, and I'm going to show you some pictures from there in just a second. Absolutely devastating amount of ice, around an inch of ice. It's just, again, an insane amount to deal with. It makes major power outages, trees fall down, the roads are completely impassable at that level. Athens, Georgia, you saw a little bit of ice. You had more than quarter of an inch. So that, again, causes major issues for driving and things like that. And then once you get to kind of that half an inch mark, that's when you really start to see more of the power outages. Now, Nashville, Tennessee, the National Weather Service there hasn't officially come out and given a number just yet for Nashville's ice, but I've gone back and looked at some of these reports, and it's anywhere between 3/4 of an inch to an inch of ice. And they're also dealing with major issues, major power outages as well. I think I saw a report today that over 20% of the U.S. power outages right now are coming from that county in Tennessee. So lots of huge issues happening there too. And then actually closer to home in Oklahoma, Idabel had an inch of ice reported as well from freezing rain and sleet. So just a very big event. Here's some of these pictures I said I was going to show you. These are, again, all from the city of Oxford, but you can just see how much ice. This is on the power lines. This is a ton of ice. And again, this is why they've had major issues across Mississippi. Ice is very heavy. It may not seem like that. You're talking about, oh, okay, only an inch of ice. No, that is thousands upon thousands of pounds that is putting all this weight on these trees, on limbs, and they just start to break off into the roads, into power lines. You get these explosions on the power lines because they're active and they're live, but then they're getting kind of torn in half, falling onto homes as well. This is outside of a church, and this church sign just got absolutely demolished, and a wider view of this church shows that part of a tree fell on the roof too. So a ton of damage coming in. Again, these are all from the city of Oxford. They've shared over 40 photos just from around the Oxford, Mississippi area, and it is just absolute devastation. And those roads right there are just completely covered in ice. It is a skating rink. You would not be able to get out on the roads even if you tried. Now, I want to show you again our ice totals really quickly too. We highlighted areas like Oxford, Mississippi, Dallas. Arkansas had a lot of freezing rain and sleet too. And that's what we really tried to show you guys here with just this HailTrace ice forecast. Going back and just verifying, hey, we talked about significant icing was possible, and it definitely happened in a lot of these communities. So it's really challenging to do one of these types of forecasts, especially when it's across the nation. But then it really is hard to when you do forecast a significant ice event and then it does come to play forward. Now, really quickly, we're going to talk about when can people get back to work, especially for our roofers. We've tweaked this map just a little bit since we showed it to you last week. Areas in this yellow, we're talking about maybe today. Really, it's going to be Tuesday. I mean, it's just so cold across the south today, too. Like Taylor was just showing you some of those pictures. It's in the teens in a lot of places, below freezing. Even if, yes, you could start to get on roofs because things are starting to melt, you don't want to be today. I mean, it's just so cold out there. So we're talking about Tuesday for areas in yellow. Areas in orange, you're looking at Wednesday, maybe Thursday. And then areas in red could be up to 7 days. We're talking about a week from now because there will be locations that get to right around freezing or maybe a couple degrees above Wednesday afternoon. But then another significant surge of cold air is going to be coming into place Thursday and Friday. So a little bit of the melting of some of the stuff that you start to see coming down Wednesday, especially again in these areas like St. Louis, Oklahoma City, Tulsa, parts of Tennessee. I mean, all these areas highlighted in red that did see significant icing or just snowfall in general, you will start to see some melting. But then it's going to turn around and get really cold again. So it is going to take several days again for that really to make big changes. I want to show you really quickly. I'm going to share my screen. I want to show you some of what we've been seeing across the area. We're going to take a look at some traffic cameras. So we're going to start off here in Oklahoma City. Here's a look. Roads are looking fairly decent right now. Plows have really been out there trying to do the best that they possibly can. But check out those roofs in the top corner. Snowpacked, completely covered. Again, people are not going to be getting on the roof today or tomorrow. Temperatures are going to stay below freezing. And yes, the sun is helping to melt some things. Solar radiation is not going to be able to do that much. Okay, let's share this tab now. This is in Dallas. This is not a video, it's a still picture, but this is off of the freeway 635 in Dallas. You are seeing a ton of covered snowy roofs, snow, sleet, again, all across Dallas. Dallas, you were not going to be lucky enough to see any people getting back on the roofs today. Maybe tomorrow, if enough of that snow can melt. All right, let's get a wider view here in St. Louis. You can see, again, some snow-covered roofs. They had, again, almost 10 inches of snow here in St. Louis. Roads are looking absolutely fantastic. Wow, those plows have really been getting out there. But again, those roofs are completely covered in snow. We'll check in really quickly on Tennessee. You can see here in the corner, again, right around here is where we're seeing some snow-covered roofs. They also had a ton of ice, and you can see that very grayish kind of look to the trees. They're still covered in ice right now. So they are going to continue to see trees just falling and stuff like that and succumbing to the weight of some of this ice over the next several days. And finally, let's check out Atlanta. Atlanta was originally in the forecast to have a winter storm. They did not see a ton of these ice impacts, which is very lucky because, again, areas like Oxford and Nashville, where we have seen a ton of this icing, has just been absolutely devastating. So Atlanta right now, nice and sunny, looking pretty nice, what a lot of people probably wish it was looking like, instead of how things have been going in the last several days. All right, let me stop sharing my screen. Let's switch this back around. Here we go. Make myself a little bit smaller again. John, if you know how to make myself a little bit awesome. So thank you. Again, so here's what you're looking at. We just showed you a lot of these areas still completely covered in snow and ice. So it's going to take some time. It is going to definitely take some time. And really quickly, I just want to show you again what you're kind of expecting after this temperature wise. This afternoon, really everyone is struggling to get back above freezing. You're in the 40s in Florida. Everybody else really is going to stay below freezing. Houston, you're at 37, so you're a little bit warmer. Memphis, Oklahoma City, other places, no, absolutely not. You get to tomorrow morning, it's still extremely cold, but then you get to the afternoon, hey, things starting to try to warm up a little bit more. Shreveport, now you're back above freezing. You are as well in Dallas, so you'll start to see some of that melting tomorrow. You may not be on your roof just yet, but starting again to see some of that progress. Wednesday morning, it's back to being extremely cold across the area. You get to Wednesday afternoon, again, a lot of temperatures will be back close to freezing, a little bit above freezing. But then the really cold air moves back in starting on Thursday. And by Thursday afternoon, things continue to be pretty chilly. Same thing for Friday afternoon as well. So we're going to try to see as much as we possibly can melt going into Tuesday and Wednesday. Once that next round of cold air does move into place later on this week, like Taylor was mentioning, end of January, heading into February, it looks pretty cold, pretty Arctic with the air that's going to be in place. So it's going to take some time, especially in these places, again, that saw 10 plus inches of snow. I mean, even 8 to 9 inches of snow. That takes a lot of time from the sun, and also just temperatures getting a little bit warmer to melt. And unfortunately, we're not just seeing a huge, big warm up that's going to make that possible really quickly. So that's kind of what you can expect. Again, where we're seeing some ice and snow right now, how long it's going to take across the area. I'll let meteorologist Taylor Cox come back in here, and now she has a lot more just to talk about after all the snow, continue to deal with it over the next several days. But I think a positive for me, just looking at all those traffic cameras, at least in a lot of places, the roads are looking pretty good.
Yeah, well, and the cities have had times to clear off the roads. So, a lot of people can get out onto those main roads. It's going to be the neighborhood roads that you're still struggling with. So if you can get out of your neighborhood, oftentimes it's a safe drive to that next location until you get back into some more of those side roads. But one of the things, Michaela, that I was noticing is that here in Oklahoma, we have very few power outages. And what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to share my screen to this power outage map and show you. There we go. Perfect. Scroll down. All right, that's perfect. In Oklahoma, we're sitting pretty good because what we had mainly snow. But if you
Yeah.
look at those places that got more ice, you can actually see the distribution of where those power outages are, mainly on the eastern side of Texas. We had a lot through the northern side of Louisiana where they were definitely in the ice zone. And then as you go further north, you can see exactly where places got ice, and that's one of those places that you were talking about, Michaela, in places like Mississippi and in Tennessee, where the majority of our power outages are just coming from these local areas that got hit the hardest.
Yeah.
So
And it's
great.
crazy. You can see that swath. I mean, you just showed it too, but it shows perfectly right where that ice went. I mean, it makes genuinely just a path, and it says, okay, here's where the ice was. You can follow that directly from the power outages.
Snow may keep you inside, but at least you've got power. Ice, that's going to not only keep you inside, but it's also going to be very devastating for our power lines and trees falling into power lines as well. Great reporting, Michaela. We appreciate you being here on our snow day with that reporting. Let's go ahead and let's go back to the map here because I want to talk about what we look like as we head into the rest of January and February as well. John, thank you so much for moving everything around for us. Let's go ahead and take a look at our active alerts. All righty. Take a look at places that are still covered in winter weather alerts for today, or cold weather alerts highlighted there in blue. That's our extreme cold warning. As Michaela said, we are still dealing with these cold temperatures, keeping that snow and ice on the ground. And you can see how many people across the U.S. are dealing with extreme temperatures. So take your precautions there. And then, of course, highlighted there in white, we've got cold air alerts as well. It's pretty breezy out there for some of us, especially in the northern portion of the U.S. today. So that's going to make it feel even colder. And of course, it's dry as well. We've talked about this dry air that's going to keep the rain and the snow out of our areas, but it's also going to, of course, keep your hands very chapped and your lips really chapped. So make sure that you take your precautions on that as well. Drink lots of water. Make sure that you are putting your chapstick and your lotion on your hands. You know the drill here. But as I mentioned, we're going to be very, very limited in terms of moisture over the next 24 to 48 hours, maybe even longer than that. You can see that on our future radar right there. Not a ton of moisture coming in. Hey, I see Ozzy hopping on here from Toronto, Canada. Ozzy, thanks for joining us today. Toronto, Canada. You guys are used to the snow. We're not used to that here in Oklahoma. And of course, Texas Aggie hopping in from Texarkana, where you guys are right on the northern edge of the hardest hit areas in terms of ice. So we hope that you're doing okay. I hope that you're not dealing with too many power outages. Texas Aggie, we appreciate you joining us today as well. All right, let's keep going through because we've only made it to Wednesday for our future radar. We've seen a little bit of snow that's trying to work its way into the Midwest, but for the most part, I'm not too terribly worried about this snow. These are places that are used to dealing with this type of weather, snow days back to back to back to back. For the most part, we will be staying dry over the next 5 to 7 days. Let's take a look at those rain and snow chances. Yeah, big, dry region across places like Oklahoma, Texas, Kansas, and across the desert Southwest as well, where I know that they need a lot of that rain. They need that moisture. We're just not going to be able to see it. As I mentioned earlier, for your snowfall accumulation, any additional snow that's coming into the Midwest, I'm not too worried about the accumulation there. You're not going to get great snowfall totals in these areas. Alrighty, moving on. I want to talk temperatures for just a moment here. So I'm going to go all the way down to our temperature departure from normal. So basically what this tells us is how cold is it going to be away from normal compared to normal. Basically what this means is we're going to stay below normal for this time of year for most of this week. Today, tomorrow, you're going to see that warmer air trying to creep its way in by the middle of this week, but it does not last for long. That cold air takes hold once again by Thursday and Friday. So this is what Michaela was talking about earlier. Why will that snow stick around for as long as we think it will? Because this cold air stays in place. There's not going to be a ton of melting because temperatures, not only are they below freezing, they're below normal for this time of the year. That's going to keep this snow sticking around, not only for the rest of this week, but also into February as well. It looks like temperatures are likely to be well below average through most of the South, portions of the Midwest, and especially our Atlantic states. It looks like temperatures will stay well below average. The good news here is you're not going to get any more snow on top of this for most of us. The bad news is we need that moisture. Our drought, while this last round of winter weather has been very helpful for our drought, we're going to see that drought creep back in slowly but surely into the very beginning of February as we don't have a ton of moisture coming into our area. Or not even our area, most of the U.S. And there's your forecast. There it is. Do we have any other questions before I hop off of here? I don't think so. I think that we have answered all of those questions. Well, again, we'll be posting more and more about the winter weather. We'll give you guys updates, but we'll also be posting about the aftermath of those tornadoes yesterday from down in Alabama, Georgia, and Tennessee. We have those tornadoes mapped at HailTrace.com. So if you want to see the path that they took, you can go ahead and look at that at HailTrace.com. You can see the phone number on your screen right now, 855-334-4245. Give us a call or email us at info@hailtrace.com or head over to our website, hailtrace.com. As always, follow us for more weather updates on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. But until the forecast tomorrow, you guys make sure that you follow us on all of those social media platforms, and we'll see you back here, same time, same place tomorrow.